Are the people that come up with these ideas brainwashed or simply brain dead? Because it seems that way. As with everything to do with EVs and electrification, it's a question of creating problems, then chasing those problems with solutions, and those solutions then cause more problems that then require more solutions, and so on. It started with, you can charge your car at home. But what if we can't charge at home? Okay, well, we'll make public charging stations. But the charging stations are slow and inconvenient. Okay, we'll dig a trench outside your house so you can run a cable across the pavement to your car. And it doesn't take a genius to work out what the problem is here, does it? Well, if you're in the EV business, apparently it does. Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. If you want to help support this channel, please be sure to drop a like down below and leave a comment, as those things feed the algorithm so more people get to learn about the realities of EVs and net zero. And please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And of course, if you wish, you can always buy me a coffee. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Like everything else to do with electrification and net zero, the infrastructure is gradually being diluted and spread thinly across huge areas, rather than being concentrated in one place. It's happening with power generation, moving from single large power stations to thousands of acres of windmills and solar panels, and it's also happening with fueling our vehicle fleet. Your average petrol station is a highly regulated and controlled environment designed specifically for the safe refueling of petrol and diesel vehicles. But now everyone's house becomes a fueling station, including all the risks and responsibilities that go with it. Suddenly, every household is responsible for dealing with a very high-power device that you connect and disconnect at least once a day. Contrast that with other high-power devices such as air conditioning units, which are usually hardwired and remote controlled. You never have to get anywhere near the supplies for those devices. Charging on your own driveway is fine if you have one, but for the significant proportion of people living in terrace houses without off-street parking, what are you supposed to do then? We'll allow the council to dig a trench outside each house so that the owner can run a cable out to their car in the street. The Guardian, which suffers, as we know, from stage 4 net zero mind virus, abandoned all critical thought and gushed when this laughable scheme was announced. As you can imagine, English councils urged to install pavement gullies for home charging of electric cars. Scheme aims to stop cables trailing across pavements and encourage drivers to switch to electric vehicles. Local councils in England will be encouraged to install pavement gullies that link houses to the curbside so that electric car owners can charge their cars from home if they do not have a driveway. The new government scheme hopes to stop cables trailing across pavements as EV owners in built-up areas where off-street parking is scarce try to charge their cars. The Department for Transport has said it will put £25 million towards cross-pavement charging, essentially a narrow cable channel with a cover on top. Providing access to chargers is a key factor in encouraging drivers to switch to electric cars, which are far cleaner than petrol and diesel engines. However, charging can be tricky for 9.3 million households without an off-street parking space, making them reliant on public chargers. The government levies VAT on the electricity from public chargers, making it much more attractive to charge using home electricity with VAT at 5%. That has led to many drivers trailing cables from their homes over the pavement to their cars. The fund for charger gullies, at only £25 million only, does not represent a large investment for the government. However, if more councils rolled out gullies, it could provide tens of thousands of drivers with the ability to charge at home. Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, said, "We know access to charging is a barrier for people thinking of making the switch, and we are tackling that head on so that everyone, whether or not they have a driveway, can access the benefits of going electric." Many councils have already rolled out cross-pavement charging. For instance, covered gully manufacturer Turbocharge counts 30 councils where its products can be installed, from Stirling in Scotland to Cornwall. However, other local authorities have been more cautious because of the concerns over trip hazards on pavements and ongoing maintenance costs, as well as arguments over who has the right to park outside each house. Foreshadowing. Charger gullies tend to cost a few £100s, with the total cost coming to about £1,000 when including labour. Other sellers include Pavecross and Gull E. Michael Goulden, the co-founder of Turbocharge, said it was excellent news that the government recognises the importance of cross-pavement charging to encourage the adoption of charging for people without driveways. Well, can we all spot the obvious flaw with this charging master plan? Thankfully, at least one journalist could. Major problem with plan to let EV drivers charge outside their homes. Next year, a trial will let people without driveways charge EVs outside their homes. A major problem has been highlighted with a new plan that would allow drivers to charge electric vehicles outside their homes across pavements. A trial next year will see gullies dug into the pavement so cables can run from houses flush with the pavement onto parking spots on the road. Bristol City Council is hoping the trial will encourage more drivers to switch to electric vehicles, as one obstacle at the moment is the lack of ability to charge cars at homes without driveways. Charging at home tends to be much cheaper than public charging points and more convenient. However, even if drivers pay for gullies to be dug, there is no guarantee that the parking spot outside their house will be available. Other drivers will be able to park in that spot instead, which would stop them from being able to charge their electric vehicle. Of course it would, because you don't have rights of occupation to the parking space outside your house, do you? Many parts of Bristol are made up of Victorian terraces with no driveways, leaving motorists struggling to find a parking spot near their home. The plans were approved by councillors on the Transport Policy Committee on Thursday, July the 10th, who flagged the potential problem with the trial. Green councillor Emma Edwards said, even in places with a resident parking zone, people don't have allocated spots. It's every person for themselves. I'm worried that this is going to be an impossible ask in areas where people really want them. The gully channels would be owned, installed and maintained by the council and paid for by individual drivers. It's unclear how much this would cost. A report to the Transport Committee admitted that gully charging could cause disagreement with neighbours in areas where competition for parking is high. Sean Taylor, head of highways, added, "We can't have trailing cables going 20 yards up roads for electrical safety as well as trip hazards. They will need to charge just outside their property. The reality of that is for places with highly dense parking, people might not think it's attractive. The highway is there for everyone's use and you cannot designate parking outside your house. Applicants will be told that they don't own the space outside their house, despite paying for the charging cable there. This means everybody else will be free to park in the spot, which would prevent drivers from actually using the cable they've paid for. Nonetheless, the scheme was welcomed, given the forecasted rise in demand for charging electric vehicles. Yes, I'm sure it was welcomed because they have switched off their brains. The only way you could welcome this kind of idiotic idea is by avoiding any kind of rational thought. And this solution, if you can even call it that, only works for individual houses. It will still fail to provide any kind of charging option for those in apartment blocks or where properties have been converted into multiple dwellings. They've just created another problem that needs another solution. And we haven't even touched on the electrical safety issues arising here. How long before the insulation on one of those cables, after constant inserting and removing from the trench day after day, wears out and electrocutes someone? Or water permeates the cable, or it gets damaged in 1,000 other ways. And then there's the issue of different houses not sharing the same earthing system. I did a whole video on this a year ago, linked above. Cross-pavement charging breaches the UK's wiring regulations at the moment and poses a risk for electric shocks between two EVs charging on different circuits or between an EV and another piece of metal street furniture. But none of that will stop the idiotic charging schemes like this one from being rolled out, because net zero trumps everything, including wiring regulations, it seems. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any tips or stories, go there. If you'd like to watch another video, go there. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, go there. And please subscribe to the channel.